The pack pushed her to the blood altar. As he touched it, the kingdom felt the connection break. Lady Alara stood at the edge of the clearing, her hands trembling as she glanced toward the stone monolith in the center. It was the blood altar, carved from black stone that shimmered faintly in the moonlight, etched with runes that seemed to pulse with life of their own. The pack had come for her. She had known this day would arrive, though she had spent countless nights hoping it would not. The pack, half human, half wolf, their eyes like molten gold, moved like wind through the trees, silent yet terrifyingly precise. They were the guardians of the curse, the enforcers of blood and power, and tonight they would demand what the kingdom had owed them for centuries. Alara's heart pounded in her chest. She was the last of her line, the only heir capable of holding the kingdom together. And yet here she was, helpless before the pack's merciless will. She gripped the edge of her cloak and tried to steady herself. A twig snapped behind her. She whirled around, expecting another shadow to leap from the trees, but it was only the wind, or so she told herself. Her mind raced, thoughts spinning like storm clouds. She had heard tales of the altar, that it connected the life of the kingdom to the blood of those who were sacrificed. That one wrong move, one moment of weakness could shatter the land itself. And tonight she was the chosen. Lady Alara, a voice growled from the shadows. It was deep, commanding, and full of menace. The pack had emerged, stepping into the clearing with deliberate slowness. Their forms were human enough to walk upright, yet the glint of fur along their arms and the slanted feral gleam in their eyes made it impossible to mistake them for anything but something inhuman. "Come willingly, or the forest will claim you first." She knew there would be no mercy tonight. The pack did not give second chances. From the edge of the clearing, a sound broke the tense silence, a soft rustle, then a figure stepping into the moonlight. Kalen. He was tall and lean, with eyes the color of steel and hair the shade of midnight. His cloak was dark and his movements were deliberate, almost silent, yet every step carried weight and authority. Alara had heard whispers of him, a warrior exiled for knowledge forbidden to common men, a man said to wield powers older than the throne itself. And now he was here. "You should not be here," one of the pack hissed, stepping forward. Its claws scraped the stone floor as it approached. "I am not here for you," Kalen said evenly, his voice carrying across the clearing. "I am here for her." His eyes met Alara's, and in that instant she felt something she could not name, a spark of hope, fragile and bright in the midst of fear. The pack snarled in unison. They circled the clearing, teeth bared, their movements synchronized like predators rehearsing a deadly dance. One of them growled, a low sound that seemed to vibrate in the ground beneath their feet. "You dare interfere, outcast. She is ours by right of blood and curse." The air around him shimmered faintly, and Alara felt a strange warmth radiating from him, a sense of protection she had never known. "Step closer, outcast," the pack leader called, its voice sharper, commanding. "Step closer and see the kingdom fall if you touch her." Everything she had ever loved. She had been prepared to die, yes, but she had never imagined the weight of responsibility would feel so suffocating. "Enough," Kalen said, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable power. He stepped forward, and with each step, the runes on the blood altar began to glow faintly, as if recognizing him. "She is not yours." For a moment the forest held its breath. Then a single wolf-shaped shadow detached from the circle, larger than the others, its eyes burning like embers. It was the leader. Alara had heard stories of its strength, but seeing it in the flesh was different, intimidating, almost unreal. The altar pulsed beneath her feet, and Alara felt a shiver run through her body. Her pulse quickened, her senses sharp with fear and anticipation. The altar seemed to respond to Kalen's presence, the runes flaring brighter with every heartbeat. It was as if the stone itself recognized a power long dormant. Kalen extended his hand, not toward the pack, but toward the altar. "I touch it," he said softly, "and the bond breaks." The runes flared violently, sending sparks of light across the clearing. Alara gasped, feeling a surge of power she could neither comprehend nor resist. A low rumble echoed through the forest. Trees shuddered, the ground beneath them cracked, and distant howls rose in panic. The pack staggered back, unsteady. The connection, the ancient, cursed connection, was straining. Alara's eyes met Kaelin's. She saw in them something she had never expected, not only determination but care, a willingness to risk everything for her. And in that moment a part of her fear began to shift. Perhaps she was not as powerless as she had believed. The pack leader roared, a sound that split the night like lightning. It leapt forward, claws extended, aiming for Kaelin. But he did not move backward. His grip on the altar tightened, and a burst of radiant energy shot from the runes, pushing the shadow back. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if even the trees waited to see the outcome. "Alara," Kaelin said urgently, "you must trust me. Do not fight it. Let the power flow through you." But she felt the pulse of the kingdom through the altar, through Kaelin, and she understood. This was more than survival. This was the chance to break the curse, to reclaim her destiny. With trembling hands, she placed her own on the cold stone beside his. The surge of energy was immediate, coursing through her veins like fire and ice intertwined. She gasped, her hair whipping around her face in the sudden wind the altar seemed to summon. The pack reeled, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in their golden eyes. The leader's roar turned into a growl, and it retreated a step, sensing that its power over the night and over the kingdom was faltering. Kaelin and Alara's eyes met again, and something unspoken passed between them. In the midst of fear and chaos, in the shadow of death and magic, they were no longer alone. They were bound, not by chains, but by choice, by courage, and by the fragile spark of trust. And yet the altar pulsed stronger than ever, as if demanding a cost for this interference. The forest seemed to whisper warnings, and distant eyes watched from the shadows. The night was far from over. "Alara," Kaelin said, his voice steady but urgent, "we have only begun. The pack will not forgive this. They will come for us, and the kingdom, it will feel every tremor." She would not be a victim. If the kingdom was to be saved, it would be because she and this outcast warrior chose to fight. The shadows of the forest shifted, and the sound of paws against leaves signaled the pack regrouping. They would return, stronger, more relentless. And when they did, the night would erupt in a storm of fury, magic, and bloodlines long cursed. Kaelin turned to her, his expression unreadable but fierce. "Are you ready?" And in that moment the moon shone brighter, casting a silver light over the altar and the two who dared to defy fate itself. The kingdom shivered, the pack waited, and the story of fire, shadow, and blood had only just begun. The forest had grown restless. Every leaf seemed to shiver as though whispering secrets to the wind, and every shadow stretched unnaturally long, as if the trees themselves were watching. Lady Alara followed Kaelin cautiously, her heart still racing from the events at the blood altar. She could feel the pulse of the kingdom in her chest, a trembling rhythm that made her fingers ache. Every step away from the altar seemed to draw them deeper into danger, yet she could not stop. Kaelin led her along a narrow path that twisted between roots and stones, his movements sure and deliberate. Though he spoke little, she felt his presence like a shield, an invisible warmth that held her fear at bay. The forest, however, did not forgive easily. Strange noises whispered through the night, the snap of branches, low growls, the rustle of unseen creatures, reminding her that the pack's eyes were never far. "Ilara," Kaelin finally said, breaking the tense silence, "we cannot linger. The altar sensed our connection. The pack will know immediately that the bond was broken. They will come for us, and when they do, they will not show mercy. I know the language of the stones, the whispers of the runes, but that knowledge comes at a cost. Every time I touch such power, a piece of me fades." His eyes, steel gray in the moonlight, held a mixture of pain and resolve. "Tonight, I risked everything for you, for the kingdom. And now, we must survive what comes next." She wanted to speak, to reassure him, but her mind was full of fear and questions. She realized something else too. a strange pull, a connection to him, deeper than she could understand. It was more than trust. It was a bond that hummed beneath her skin, invisible yet undeniable. A rustling behind them made her whirl, hand instinctively reaching for a dagger at her belt. But Kalen's calm gaze stopped her. "Not yet," he murmured. His senses were attuned to danger in ways hers were not. She lowered her hand, though her pulse still raced. They reached a small clearing where the moonlight touched a fallen stone circle. Here, Kalen paused and gestured for her to sit. "We can rest briefly," he said, "but do not let your guard down. The forest is not our friend tonight." The pack had been disturbed, more than she had imagined possible. "You must understand," Kalen said, sitting beside her, "the altar is not just stone. It is a conduit, a connection between the land, the blood of its rulers, and the curse that binds it. When I touched it, we interfered with something ancient, something that has controlled this kingdom for centuries. The forest, the pack, they feel it. They will not forgive." "A library," she whispered, leaning closer. "Is it safe? If we are to challenge the pack, if we are to save the kingdom, it is there we must go." Kalen's hand brushed against hers, a subtle touch, almost accidental, yet it steadied her more than any words could. The forest seemed to change as night deepened. Trees grew taller, their branches twisting into shapes that reminded Alara of claws. Shadows seemed to stretch toward them, reaching with silent hunger. And through it all, the howl of the pack followed, a reminder that their pursuers were relentless, patient, and cruel. Suddenly, Kalen stopped. His posture became tense, muscles coiled like a spring. "Stay close," he whispered. "They are near." Yet alongside it, a strange thrill surged, a sense that she was part of something greater, a story that stretched beyond herself. She glanced at Kalen. The danger was real, yet his calm, unyielding presence gave her courage she did not know she possessed. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Not quite human, not quite wolf. Its eyes glowed gold, and its body moved with a terrifying grace. Alara froze. It was a scout sent to test them, to see if they were worthy prey. Kalen stepped forward, drawing on his inner power. Light shimmered faintly around his hands, a radiance that seemed to push the shadows back. "Go," he commanded, his voice carrying an authority that made the creature pause. The wolf-like scout tilted its head, growled, and then retreated into the darkness, leaving only the echo of its warning howl. Alara exhaled slowly, realizing that Kalen's power was not only protective but dangerous. You frighten them," she said softly, awe mixed with fear. He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "They fear what they do not control. And tonight they have lost control." As they waded into the river, cold water lapping at their knees, she noticed the stars reflected in the surface, trembling like scattered gems. She thought of the kingdom, of the life force tied to the altar, and of the pack whose shadows haunted every path. A shiver ran through her, but it was not entirely from cold. Finally, they reached the far bank, dripping and exhausted. The forest on this side was quieter, though the silence carried its own tension. Kalen led her to a hidden path, barely visible under the roots and fallen leaves. Soon, they arrived at a stone archway covered in moss and ivy, a gateway into the hidden sanctuary of the ancient kings. "The library," Kalen said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Here we may find the answers we seek." As they entered, Kalen lit a torch, revealing rows upon rows of ancient tomes, scrolls, and artifacts. The library seemed endless, stretching into shadows, filled with the whispers of kings and scholars long dead. Alara's eyes widened. This was more than a refuge. It was a treasure trove of secrets that could change the fate of the kingdom. Kalen moved to a central table and spread open a large tome. The pages were thick with dust, etched with symbols that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. "This book," he said, "holds the history of the curse and the rituals of the altar. We must understand it if we hope to break the pack's hold entirely." "And if we fail?" she asked softly. Kalen's eyes met hers, and for a moment the shadows of the forest and the threat of the pack seemed distant. "Then the kingdom suffers, and we may not survive, but we will not fail, not while we stand together. The pack had found them again, and this time it was no longer a test. They were coming for her. Ilara gripped Kalen's arm. They will not stop. We cannot falter. The forest trembled, the stars flickered, and the kingdom felt the echo of the altar's broken bond. The night was far from over, and the danger had only just begun. The library was vast and shadowed, the torchlight flickering against walls stacked high with ancient tomes. Every breath Ilara took seemed to stir the air with whispers of old secrets, the dust floating like tiny sparks in the golden glow. She followed Kalen through the labyrinth of shelves, her senses alert to the faintest sound. The pack's presence lingered like a cold wind just beyond the walls. Kalen pulled a heavy tome from a shelf, its leather cover cracked with age. The symbols etched into its surface glowed faintly, responding to the power that still pulsed between him and the altar. He opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with swirling runes, diagrams of ancient rituals, and passages written in the old tongue of Eldrath. "Ilara," he said, his voice low, carrying both urgency and reverence, "this is what I was searching for. The history of the altar, the curse, and the bloodlines tied to it. We need to understand it if we are to survive and break the pack's hold." Yet among the words she began to see a pattern. The curse was not merely a spell, it was a living chain, connecting the rulers of Eldrath to the altar and through it to the pack. Every generation had suffered under its control, and every attempt to resist had been met with death. "How do we break it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kalen's gaze met hers, serious and unyielding. "The bond can only be broken if two lives willingly connect their powers. One must surrender a portion of themselves, and the other must accept it. Only then can the altar be freed and the curse undone. The altar will consume more of the kingdom's life, and the pack will grow in power. Worse, one or both of us may not survive." She would not let the kingdom fall, not while there was a chance to fight. Kalen's hand brushed hers accidentally as he turned a page. The touch was fleeting, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. She realized then that their bond was growing, not only through magic but through something deeper, something she could not yet name. "We must prepare," Kalen continued, his voice steadying her, "and we must trust one another. The altar will test us and the pack will challenge our resolve, but if we are united, we have a chance." The pack had found a way inside. Kalen moved closer to her, his presence a shield against the fear rising in her chest. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. "We will not be caught unaware." The scout had returned, but this time it was not alone. Behind it, others slinked into view, their forms blending with the darkness. Ilara gripped Kalen's arm. They followed us." Kalen raised his hand, and a faint shimmer of light radiated outward, pushing the closest shadows back. "We cannot fight them all," he said, "but we can hold them at bay. Quickly, we must reach the inner sanctum." Ilara followed, her heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. Every step felt like a gamble. One misstep and the pack could overwhelm them. Finally, they reached a stone door carved with intricate patterns. Kalen placed his hand on it, murmuring words in the old tongue. The runes glowed and the door creaked open, revealing a chamber filled with light dust motes floating in the air like tiny stars. In the center stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient crystal, glowing softly. "This is it," Kalen whispered. "The heart of the library. Here we will find the knowledge to break the curse." She felt its warmth, a gentle hum that resonated with the pulse she had felt at the altar. It was as if the kingdom itself was speaking to her, urging her forward. Kalen studied the crystal closely, tracing the runes carved into its surface. "It records the history of the curse," he explained. "Every sacrifice, every attempt to break it, all of it. And it may also hold the key to undoing it." The shadows pressed against the walls, snarling and growling, their eyes glowing with fury. Kalen placed a protective hand on Ilara's shoulder. "Stay close," he said. "The test is only beginning." And beside Kaelin, she felt a courage she had never known. The pack's growls grew louder, closer, as if the walls themselves could not contain them. Kaelin raised his hands, chanting in the old tongue, and a barrier of shimmering light rose around the chamber. The shadows struck against it, recoiling with each impact. "Alara," Kaelin said urgently, "we must be ready. The altar, the pack, they will test everything. Your fear, your strength, your will, and so will I." The room shook with the force of their attack. Alara felt the pulse of the crystal beneath her fingers, a steady rhythm that seemed to synchronize with her heartbeat. Kaelin's voice rose, chanting louder, his power flowing into the barrier, strengthening it. Alara felt a warmth spreading through her body, a connection to Kaelin, the crystal, and the kingdom itself. She realized then that they were not only defending themselves, they were defending the fate of Eldrath. A sudden flash of light erupted from the crystal, and the shadows recoiled, retreating momentarily. In that instant, Alara saw visions of the past, the sacrifices made, the rulers who had fallen, and the moments when hope had nearly died. She saw the pain of generations, and alongside it, a faint glimmer of redemption, a promise that the cycle could be broken. Kaelin's hand found hers, holding it tightly. "We are ready," he said. "Together we can end this." And that, she realized, might be enough. The shadows began to gather again, preparing for another assault. Kaelin tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes meeting hers with unspoken promise. "No matter what happens," he said, "we face it together." And in the heart of the hidden sanctuary, Alara and Kaelin stood side by side, ready to confront the curse, the pack, and the fate of Eldrath itself. The night stretched before them, dark, uncertain, and full of trials. But for the first time, Alara felt the stirrings of hope, and somewhere deep in the shadows, the pack waited, patient, cunning, and ready to strike. The test had only just begun. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The wind had stilled, and the moon shone pale and cold, casting silver light over twisted branches. Lady Alara and Kaelin moved cautiously, their senses alert, knowing that the pack was closer than ever. The hidden library had given them knowledge, but it had also revealed the danger that awaited them, the altar, the curse, and the pack's relentless pursuit. "Alara," Kaelin whispered, pausing beside a twisted oak, "the altar awaits. We cannot delay. Every moment we wait, the bond between the kingdom and the pack strengthens. The connection must be broken tonight, or the curse will grow beyond our power to stop it." The path to the blood altar was treacherous. Roots like serpents snaked across the ground, and fog curled around their feet, hiding unseen pitfalls. Shadows moved unnaturally, as if the forest itself sought to challenge their passage. Yet Kaelin's steps were certain, guided by instinct and knowledge. Alara followed, trusting him in a way she had never trusted another human being. Finally, the clearing came into view. The blood altar stood at its center, black and massive, etched with runes that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The air vibrated with ancient power, thick and heavy, pressing down on them. Around the altar, the pack waited, their forms coiled and tense, eyes glowing gold, snarling softly. The leader emerged from the shadows, larger and more terrifying than any before, its fur bristling, claws scraping against the stone. It circled the altar slowly, watching, waiting. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. She knew this creature had ruled fear in the kingdom for centuries, and tonight she and Kaelin would face it. Kaelin stepped forward, placing his hand on the cold stone of the altar. The runes flared, reacting instantly to his presence. Alara followed, her own hand brushing against his. The connection was immediate, a surge of energy that flowed through them both, stronger than she had felt before. The kingdom seemed to tremble, as if the land itself recognized their act of defiance. "You dare to return," the pack leader growled, its voice echoing like thunder. "Do you not know your place? The altar is ours, the curse eternal. You cannot defy it." The altar responded to them, but not without strain. The runes glowed brighter, flickering like fire, and the air around them hummed with energy. She felt fear, yes, but also something else, connection. With Kaelin, she was no longer alone. The pack lunged. Shadows moved faster than the eye could follow, but Kalen's power flared outward, pushing them back. Alara felt the magic course through her, fear transforming into strength. She realized then that this was not merely a battle of bodies, but of wills, of courage, of the power to choose one's own destiny. The leader snarled and leapt toward them, claws extended, aiming for Kalen. But Alara acted instinctively, stepping forward, her hands meeting the altar. A burst of energy erupted, striking the creature and sending it crashing backward. The runes flared with such intensity that the clearing was bathed in golden light, almost blinding, and for a moment even the pack seemed to hesitate. Kalen gripped her hand, holding her close. "We must focus," he said. "The altar will test everything, our fear, our resolve, our bond. Trust me, Alara." "Trust yourself." Its eyes blazed with gold, and its presence pressed down on them, heavy as stone. But Kalen did not falter. He whispered words in the old tongue, his voice steady, commanding the energy of the altar. The runes pulsed in response, and the ground beneath the pack seemed to tremble. Alara could feel the strain. Her muscles ached, her mind spun with visions, images of past sacrifices, rulers who had fallen, generations bound to the curse. But alongside the fear was a sense of purpose, of destiny. She was part of this story, part of the force that could undo centuries of suffering. The pack charged again, faster, more desperate. The leader lunged for her, eyes fixed on her as if sensing that her very life force was key to the altar's power. Alara stepped forward instinctively, placing both hands on the stone. Energy surged through her, flowing into the runes, into Kalen, and outward toward the pack. A shockwave of light and power erupted, and the pack stumbled, thrown backward by the force. Kalen's voice rang out louder, commanding the altar. "Now, Alara, trust me completely." She felt the pulse of the kingdom through the altar, felt its suffering and its hope, and she poured her courage into it, into them. The leader charged one final time, its roar deafening. But as it reached the clearing, a barrier of light, born from their combined strength, stopped it. The energy of the altar surged upward, enveloping the leader in a brilliant glow. The creature let out a final, anguished howl and collapsed, its form shrinking, returning to a human shape, one of the ancient ruler's descendants, freed from the curse for the first time in centuries. Alara gasped, looking at Kalen. We did it," she asked, her voice trembling. Kalen nodded, though his own body sagged from exhaustion. "For now," he said. "The altar is quiet, the curse weakened. But this is only the beginning. We have changed the rules, but the cost we do not yet know." Yet even in this moment of triumph, Alara sensed a lingering weight, a reminder that the altar demanded more, that the kingdom's fate remained fragile. Kalen turned to her, his expression softened by relief and something deeper, something almost like awe. "You were brave," he said, his hand brushing hers. "Stronger than I imagined. Without you, none of this would have been possible. The pack may be broken, but the curse, the altar, it will test us again. We must be ready." "Who are you?" "Whatever it asks, we will face it together." The night stretched on, stars glittering above, the forest holding its breath. Kalen and Alara stood side by side, hands intertwined, their resolve unbroken. They had faced the heart of the blood altar and survived, but the true challenge, the ultimate test of their bond and of the kingdom's fate, still lay ahead. As they prepared to leave the clearing, a whisper seemed to float on the wind, soft yet unmistakable. "The bond is sealed, but the cost is not yet paid." "Whatever it is," he said, "we face it together." And in that quiet, Alara understood fully. Their greatest trial was yet to begin. The first light of dawn touched the edges of the forest, spilling silver across the clearing where the blood altar had stood. Lady Alara and Kalen stood together, their hands still entwined, their breath steadying after the long, tense night. The forest was quiet now, but it was a quiet born of watchfulness, not peace. They both knew the altar's trials were far from over. "Alara," Kalen said, his voice low but resolute, "the bond we've formed, it is more than just magic. It is trust, courage, and will. The altar has accepted it, but it demands a final act, a declaration, a choice. Are you ready? Then let us finish this. The kingdom's fate rests in our hands. Kalen placed his hand on the altar and Alara followed, their fingers brushing. The energy surged between them, stronger now, like a river flowing through their veins. Alara felt the pulse of the kingdom, its life intertwined with theirs, demanding courage, demanding unity. From the shadows, the remnants of the pack appeared, fewer now, wary and cautious. The leader had fallen, freed from the curse, but the others still lingered, their golden eyes watching, waiting. They had been defeated but not destroyed. They tested the strength of the bond before them. Kalen whispered to Alara, "The altar will require a demonstration of true unity. Not just magic, but trust and the willingness to share power fully. You must let go of fear. Only then will the curse break." A vibration traveled through the ground and into the very air, like the heartbeat of the kingdom itself. Alara felt Kalen's strength, calm and steady, flowing into her, and in return she gave him all she had: courage, trust, and determination. The pack moved forward, testing, circling, but they could not touch the bond. Every strike, every snarl met the invisible barrier created by unity. The altar hummed, a sound like wind through mountains, and the runes shone brighter, their light spreading outward. "Alara," Kalen said urgently, "focus on the connection. Feel the kingdom, feel the land, feel me beside you. Let it flow through you unbroken." The fear, the pain of the past rulers, the centuries of sacrifice, all of it was there. But now, for the first time, she felt hope. She felt love, trust, and courage flowing together, stronger than any shadow. The altar responded. The runes burned brighter, golden fire spilling across the stone. Energy surged into the forest, and the pack yelped and retreated, unable to withstand the force. Trees trembled, leaves rustled, and the air shimmered with the power of life being restored. Kalen pressed closer, his hand steady on hers. "Now, Alara, give it completely. Let go of doubt. Let us finish this together." A golden light enveloped them, and the altar pulsed like a living heart. The energy spread outward, washing over the forest, over the kingdom, over the remnants of the pack. The remaining shadows dissolved into golden light, their forms changing. Where wolves had lurked, human shapes appeared, freed from the ancient curse. The leader's roar, the growls, the fear, it all ended in a single, brilliant wave of magic that seemed to breathe life back into the land. Alara and Kalen held each other's gaze through the surge of power. "We did it," Alara whispered, her voice trembling with awe and relief. Kalen smiled, a rare, soft expression that warmed her heart. "We did, together." The altar's runes dimmed to a steady, gentle glow, no longer pulsing with threat. The kingdom seemed to breathe, alive again, restored. The curse was broken not by strength alone, but by unity, courage, and trust. Alara stepped back, looking around the clearing. The forest no longer felt menacing, it was quiet and serene. The pack was gone, freed, transformed. The kingdom would heal. And in that moment she realized that everything she had feared, the responsibility, the danger, the ancient curse, had led her here to a victory she had never thought possible. Kalen turned to her, eyes soft and steady. "Alara," he said, "the altar accepted our bond, but the connection we have, it is ours. Not the altar's, not the curse's, ours. Do you understand?" "I understand," she said, "and I choose this, you." His gesture was gentle, reverent, and filled with a promise of loyalty and protection. "Then we move forward together," he said softly. "Whatever comes, we face it side by side." The clearing felt like a sanctuary, a place where courage had triumphed over fear, where unity had overcome darkness. Kalen and Alara turned toward the kingdom, the horizon bathed in the first golden light of dawn. The blood altar remained, a silent sentinel, but it was no longer a source of fear. It had tested them, challenged them, and in doing so it had forged something stronger than magic. It had forged trust, hope, and love. As they walked from the clearing, hand in hand, the weight of responsibility remained, but it no longer felt crushing. The kingdom would heal, the curse had ended, and they had each other. Every step forward was theirs to claim. Alara glanced at Kaelin, her heart full of gratitude and something deeper. "We survived," she said softly. "We truly survived." For the first time in generations, the kingdom felt alive, free, and unburdened by shadow. And at the center of it all were two hearts bound by courage, trust, and a bond stronger than any curse. Alara looked at Kaelin, her hand resting in his, feeling the pulse of life beneath their fingers. "The night was long," she said, "but now the dawn is ours." "Yes," he said, "and together we will face every dawn after this. No darkness can undo what we have forged." Alara and Kaelin walked forward side by side, hearts beating in harmony with the land itself. They had faced fear, power, and destiny, and they had emerged stronger, united, and unafraid. And in that moment, they understood the truth that the blood altar had revealed. Courage and trust could break even the oldest curse, and love, gentle, steadfast, and unyielding, could shape the fate of a kingdom. The forest whispered its approval, the sun shone brighter, and the kingdom of Eldrath awoke to a new dawn. A dawn of hope, unity, and the enduring bond of two hearts that had conquered the darkness together.